So to get started, I want to hit you guys first with just a few slides here for those who, if it was your first time kind of seeing this product and kind of setting the framework of what it's all about. So you may be thinking, hey, ServiceNow, where does ServiceNow fit in the security space? Well, you've probably got today tools in-house that are able to protect your environment from threats. So you could have antivirus tools, you could have firewalls, Palo Alto, the list kind of goes on. And you probably got tools that are capable of detecting malicious activity or detecting vulnerabilities on your network. And then you probably have other tools in-house that have a way to work with those tools to correlate everything together and look for trends in your environment. Where ServiceNow fits into this picture is going to be on the response side of the house. So when something happens on the network, what is our standardized approach in responding to a security-related event? What's our standardized response for addressing a vulnerability that was found inside of the organization? So know this, ServiceNow can integrate with a number of different vendors that you guys may have inside of your organizations today. And we're able to integrate in with these additional security products and vulnerability tools to handle the response type process. And I always like showing this slide. This is really good. So I mean, think about today in your organization, what that looks like when it comes time to address a problem that could be seen. So I've got a network, or I got a device on my network, and it got infected. Well, what are all the different steps that you then do to address that machine that got super infected? Do you get out of your office? Do you walk down the hall? Do you talk to that user? Do you talk to the admin of that user? Or a vulnerability, right? It seems like every quarter, every other quarter, there's some big vulnerability that happens, and everyone's like, "Hey, are we covered for this?" And you start. What do? You start, running over to your tools. You start running Excel documents and reports and shooting emails. So how do you respond today for a security-related event or like a vulnerability of like, hey, there's some known exploit that just came out. How do we address this? And while you've kind of thought about that for a little bit, ServiceNow has created, basically maturity levels that they see a lot of organizations fit in. So if your answer here for this previous slide here, like how do you respond? Are you picking up the phone? Are you walking down the hall to address something? Today, 97% of organizations are in, that state of doing things manually and running spreadsheets and walking down the hall and phone dialing people to get answers. And what we can begin doing here to mature the response process is, first off, as I was showing earlier, all these different tools, and there's many more than this, just a good sampling, we can begin bringing in data from those type of security tools inside of ServiceNow. So now I've got data inside that I can respond to and stay organized and have a standardized type of response. And then higher levels, I'm bringing in incidents and that there's something that needs to be, reacted upon or responded to. Well, now I can start putting value and prioritize. So is a certain individual's machine more important than someone else's? Is a certain server on my network that supports a critical business service more important than one that's, running in the dev? Sure. So we can start assigning values and prioritizing to figure out, should this be on the top of my pile or not? And then the last phase is the highest maturity here, levels 3, level 4. I'm going to be showing you today a little bit, what those higher levels would look like. So as an example, as part of a standardized response, maybe the standardized response, for a virus is, hey, try to remediate it, and then eventually, if you can't, well, just go ahead and maybe we eventually reimage it. Could we have ServiceNow talk to my imaging tool to just re-image that device? Sure. Could we have ServiceNow just talk to my Active Directory tool and reset the infected primary user's password? Sure. And those are some of the higher level maturity that you can look at getting within a tool like this. So I want to just explain real quick here, and this is going to be the last slide I throw you. And I'll pop this up a couple times as we're going through, but I want to explain my demo here. The demo, I've got a ServiceNow instance, and I've got on the right here, I've got a tenable instance, and that's currently, scanning for vulnerabilities in my environment, seeing, hey, what vulnerabilities are on your devices, and it's going to go ahead and send that up to ServiceNow. I also have on the security incident side, I have a device that I called Thor server, and it's a critical server in my environment. And this Thor server, has a tool running on it called Advanced Threat Protection, and I've loaded it up just full of threats. And what's happening is that this Advanced Threat Protection tool is sending those events also to my Splunk instance or my SIEM. And I'm going to show you, and this will be the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to show you how we can log into like a SIEM, as an example. You may have other tools, but how we can send then incidents up into ServiceNow and then begin acting on them in an automated manner. So I think the best way to talk about this tool is just showing it in action. So let me go ahead and I'm going to do so. I'm going to flip over here and I'm going to bring open my ServiceNow incident. Here we go, or my instance, I should say. And I'll set the stage. Okay. So I've got an RDP session open, and this is going to be my Splunk instance right here. So this is my Splunk instance, and I've got a particular virus that I use all the time for my demos here, and I want to show you. So I'm going to search for this threat all time, and I'm going to go ahead and search for this particular threat. And when I do so, I see that I have 55 events that have happened inside of my environment. Now, scrolling down, I'm going to look to see a little bit more information about this. So my antivirus tool, insert whatever you guys use, has the capability to get a lot of this data. So I know the hash of the threat. I know the action that was allowed, and in my environment, I said, hey, just allow that threat to be. I know the device that got infected, right? So that's data I can use right off of the bat. What's my device that's in question? File path, sure. So what is the path here that got infected? Where is this threat hanging out? What's the name of it? What type of a tag is it? I see that it's malware. The list kind of goes on. Know this. All of these fields that are gathered by your antivirus tool can be sent to a tool like ServiceNow, so that the idea is that you don't have to launch multiple tools, run reports. All the data that you're looking for is going to kind of be sent along the way. I'm going to show you that here. And to do so, you're going to see here where it says event actions. And in my demo, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to manually tell it to do it. Okay, I'm going to say, hey, go ahead and create an incident based off of the attributes I wanted to bring over into my ticket. And any of these fields could have been brought over. Just so you know as well, you're like, well, Pat, I don't want to manually do it. Can I just have it, automatically send it? The answer is yeah, absolutely. We can create alerting, so then when certain criteria is true for your results, you could have an incident then made on your behalf within your instance automatically. So that was the first step here. Going back, I've got this Thor server. He got a threat, super infected. My antivirus tool or advanced threat protection tool discovered this, sent it to Splunk, and now I've gone ahead and said, okay, I've got this threat. I'm going to go ahead and act upon this in a standardized fashion now. So let's do it. So now I have flipped over to my ServiceNow instance. and I'm under the security incident side of the house. So let me go ahead and I'm going to click on the latest ticket that was created. I'm just going to kind of work through this here, kind of from top to bottom here. So first off, configuration item, right? Yeah, my antivirus tool, it knew the device. So this was the Thor server, you know, that's a configuration item inside of ServiceNow. And if when you reach the higher maturity levels, let me go back to my spreadsheet kind of showing you, this is this part here, the value-based prioritization. Okay, so my Thor server, that's a critical system in my environment. So if you look over here, you're going to see the business impact is critical and the priority is critical as well. Well, why is that? Why is this Thor server so important? How did I figure this out? And that's where here I can look at some of my dependencies. So once I do so, I see that my Thor computer, okay, it's part of this line of business here. So let me go ahead and kind of break this out so you can see. I can see that the Thor server, you know, that's part of my retail point of sale service. And I have identified this service, you know, that's my lifeblood. If a store goes down, you know, this is the most important part of my business. So I have specified that this is a critical line of business, and because of that, the associated devices are also, you know, they're critical. So they're high importance. So that's how we went ahead and did that. You know, we associate devices to lines of business, and then you can use that if you have it available to give you better insight as to what should be the top of the pile versus, no, well, it's important, but maybe not. I can work on something else ahead of this. So looking through here, short description. Yeah. So I had done a search in Splunk. I looked for something called bonsai.dll. So this is where I told it to go ahead and populate some of this right inside of my short description. And have you ever had a flare up? So have you ever had a threat in your environment? It's like, you know, we kind of saw this a couple months ago, and then it kind of died down. Then it came back, and you kind of forgot how you addressed with it. Well, the attributes that we can bring into the short description, you know, we can search the knowledge base right inside of ServiceNow. So here it looked for keywords here, and it saw adware.bonsai. So here I see a KB article on how to actually fix this. So kind of nice, you know, you can make articles and then be able to search for things on the fly. So again, the idea is that, you know, you're addressing a threat, but the data is all within your ticket here, as much as we can. So looking through here a little bit more, you'll see here different options that we have around the incident detail. You'll notice you have work notes and secure notes, read access, watch list. Yeah, you can add additional individuals if you wanted them to get insight or to be able to read the incidents. So that's another key aspect I'd like to point out, is that you can specify which individuals inside of your environment you would like to see a security related incident. So I think that's very important, and that comes up quite a bit. Scrolling through a little bit, you're going to see I have a number of activities that have happened automatically for me. I've got some integrations going on with TrueStar and VirusTotal. Let me show you what these look like. So I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the show IOC, or show indicators of compromise. Now, if you remember when I was on my Splunk instance, let me go back here. I got right on my Splunk, I got the hash, right? I know the hash of the threat. So I brought it over and I said, you know what? This is the data. Here's the DLLs, here's the paths, here's the file hash. These are my indicators of compromise. And what I have done is I've gone right ahead and I have it. ServiceNow is reaching out. In my example, I'm using a service called TrueStar. And TrueStar came back and has told me here, yeah, this is a malicious, right? This is known to be bad. So the idea here is, you know, think about what you use for threat intelligence, right? How do you go ahead and verify or get more data? We can have integrations with those additional tools, so that the idea is that information is going to be available to you right from the incident. But yeah, IOC Scratchpad, That's just another view of looking at it. So here's that hash. Now, this is what I really like to get into. Here you're going to see response workflow. So we can have different responses based on any criteria that you see. So in my demo environment, basically what I do is I say, hey, if my incident comes in from Splunk, hey, Pat's doing his normal demo, go ahead and start this workflow. Well, I could have a category or a subcategory. So maybe there was a subcategory for, hey, this was a phishing related event. A user lost their laptop, was encrypted, right? And there's going to be maybe different response workflows that you would want to trigger. Just know that we can have different categories and subcategories trigger different standardized responses. So here, let me go over in my workflow, and you're going to see, you know, what's the first thing I want to do in my response workflow? And I'm gonna work through this here so you can kind of see what this looks like. But first off, rescan the endpoint. Was malware found? Okay. And here you're going to see related tasks. Now play along with me here, right? A lot of the time, these tasks are going to be divvied up to different individuals. So different individuals are going to be responsible for addressing, you know, certain tasks. In many cases, or maybe it could be the same person, just depends. So here, you know, to play along with my example here, I'm going to say yes. Okay. So the outcome here, I rescanned, and yes, it still had malware. Okay. Give that a save. And when I do so, what's going to happen is my workflow is going to go right ahead and move to the next step. Well, was removing the malware successful? Okay. I'm going to say no, just as an example. So no, I wasn't able to clean it up. It was too wicked of a threat. Couldn't fix it. Couldn't use the previous advice from my KB article. Okay. Well, there comes a time that we take a machine behind the barn and reimage it, right? So what would that be, right? You know, what do you guys use to reimage a machine, right? Who's responsible for doing that? That's where here, maybe this is someone not on the security team, most likely, and it's someone, you know, on your systems admin side or operations side. So now a task would be created and routed to the individual or department that's responsible for wiping up this device. And they know the device name that they want to do and to do this. So let me go ahead. I'm just going to populate this. Right. So always yes. So I've wiped it. At this point, I've wiped the device. And I'm moving right along. Now, this is where I like the standardized response process here. This is a playbook. And we're following the playbook step by step. I had Thor server. It was infected. I wiped it. Okay. Well, is it a good idea to maybe reset the user's password? In some cases. Yeah. Yeah, you ever forget? Well, this is where we can go ahead and do that. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in here, you know, I reached out to Brian and told him I reset. Okay. Now the rest of it here, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of move it along to the end. But think about, you know, what are the different things that you could want to do in the response process? Was this part of a larger breach? Yeah, okay. Do I get other people involved? We got HR, legal, you know, whatever that would be. I'm going to go ahead and just, for the sake of the demo, I'm going to specify no. All right, we are ended, right? We finished. Now, I could have had this moving along in my workflow as I went, but here I'm just going to go ahead and do so now. So I'm going to put the state here in a review basis here. And the last thing you're going to see is there's this post-incident review. So when I do this is saved, you know, when I've put this tool up at other organizations, they say, well, Pat, you know, I kind of reserve Friday. It's the end of the week here. I'll reserve half my day Friday, just going through and documenting, you know, catching up with my paperwork. And this has saved so many people so much time, because think about, in just that example, right? I had someone from the systems management team wipe the device. I had someone from my AD team reset the password. And everything that I had done there is now documented in my post-incident review. And earlier when you saw me kind of typing in that example about, hey, I reached out to Brian and told him I reset his password, right? So there's an audit trail. So it's going to tell me who did that at what time and any notes about that. So it's all well documented, and you know how you addressed a certain security related event. Now, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint briefly. Levels 3 and level 4 there, automating things. When you saw that workflow that I was showing you, and I had a task here to reset the user's password, and there was a task made, it was assigned to somebody, and they just manually did it. Could ServiceNow, just talk to my Active Directory and reset the user's password in an automated fashion? Yeah, absolutely it could. And those are some of those higher maturities that you look at doing on automating, the standardized response process. So I'm going to stop one moment and make sure I don't have any questions that have popped up so far. So we took a look at the security incident response. We had a standardized process of answering a process. I want to show you some of the other examples that are here. This one comes up a lot. Pat is there, and again, all these kind of workflows I'm showing you are kind of available out of the box. And the idea is that they're good starters, and then you kind of tweak them to fit your guys' process and flow. But here's a good one that comes up a lot when I do demos and talk to folks. Lost equipment template. Yeah. So hey, I was traveling home. I left my laptop in the airport, and it's there, and I'm here. So what is the process that we would want for that, right? Did the equipment contain sensitive data? Sure. You guys doing a data loss prevention scan, a discover scan. Okay, but was the data encrypted? Well, let's check our antivirus tool. But again, going back to when I was talking here, can we bring in data that would tell ServiceNow, yeah, this is encrypted, or no, it's not? You bet you could. So then we can take automated actions here, like, okay, yeah, I see that it was not encrypted. Okay, well then I just need to go ahead and start doing the rest of the process. Or here, maybe it was encrypted, and here, do a remote wipe. Do I get legal involved and so forth? Phishing template. Yeah, no, this is a really good one here. So you could have end users go ahead and submit an incident, to the security team, saying, hey, I think I got phished. This looks suspicious. And then the workflow would kind of begin from there. So was this a phishing attack? Yes, it was. Okay, what do we need to do? Is my antivirus up to date? Do I scan the endpoint? Do I remove any unread phishing emails in the queue for all my users? Sure. Yeah, those are things that we can do. Policy violation, sure. More of a soft process there. Unauthorized access, spam, and the list kind of goes on. And again, if there's not one here, people are like, oh, could I make my own? I have something unique to me. Sure, yeah. Any of these can be created from scratch as well. There's just a lot of them that are available out of the box. Next up, I want to shift gears to vulnerability. My environment, in my demo, I've got Tenable as my vulnerability scanner. Tenable, Qualys, Rapid7, the list kind of goes on. There's lots of different vulnerability tools that ServiceNow integrates with out of the box. And if you had questions on like, well, I use this or that, feel free to type those into the comment section. I can give you an answer off the top of my head. If I don't know, I'll follow up with you because they're always adding in new integrations every day. But I have Tenable as my vulnerability scanner, scanning for vulnerabilities. And what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to look at the vulnerability groups, okay? And I have one particular vulnerability I always like to pick on. It's called 18405. So when I select this group, I see this vulnerability. I can click right here on this eye. So now I can see for this vulnerability, what's it about? What's the threat? What's the issue here? So the remote, yeah, so this one in particular is about an RDP, the RDP settings. And then down here, it's telling me, how do you actually fix this? So check the box, force the use of an SSL as a transport layer for the service. Select the allow connections from computers or running a network level authentication. That's how we fix it. So this could be fixed, maybe with the GPO if I wanted to implement it. Absolutely. Maybe registry entry. The list kind of goes on, or maybe it's a patch. This one I know it could be solved with like a GPO. So what do we do here? I can initiate a change request. So I can go right ahead from here and say, you know what, this is something that I'm looking to get implemented. But we have, to follow the correct process and procedure to create changes inside of our environment. So that's where we can have vulnerabilities that my scanner found. We go ahead and create changes and then implement them. And then right from the group here, if I scroll down a little bit more, you'll see a list of all the different devices in your environment that are applicable for this. Okay, who's applicable. So now I've got this, and this, again, it's going to vary from variable to or vulnerability to vulnerability, but I mean there could be thousands of items that are in here. Who is responsible for approving or denying this vulnerability? Holiday seasons are coming up, so you may look at this vulnerability and say, you know what, we want to deal with this, but not right now. Okay, I want to defer this until after the holiday season. Okay, so I'm looking at the third week of January here, and once that's done, you know what, bring this back up to me, and I'm going to deal with it then. Okay, so we could defer this and accept a risk and deal with it at another time, but we're documenting and specifying, like, well, why didn't we deal with this? Well, this is why, because the cost, the cost of fixing it was too great at this time due to our business season, as an example. So again, I can create a change. If I do so, create change. There we go. And then who's responsible for fixing, right? Who puts this fix in? Again, the vulnerability is specified here. The people that are responsible for implementing the change, they can read up on how to fix it. You can specify in here, what's your implementation plan, right? What's your test plan? What's your backup plan? So this is all standard change management at this point. Who are the individuals that are responsible, for accepting the change? So this is where we can have then, again, a workflow for all the different steps that need to happen. Now, eventually, as part of this, is we're going to have, the change implemented, right? Actually do the change. And I want to go back to this slide. I keep hitting on it. You might be thinking, okay, that's great. I got a vulnerability. Maybe a vulnerability gets fixed by a patch, and I want to push that patch out. Could I work with other third-party tools and integrate into them, to automatically address patching or addressing vulnerabilities that are defined? And the answer is yes, and that's going to be the higher vulnerability or the higher maturity levels. Just like how I knew the machine's name or the user's name that got infected, I know the machine that needs this vulnerability. I know when the change window was completed. When am I now allowed to implement that fix? So that's all things that we can do as part of vulnerability. All right, now I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to pick on one of my machines. So here, I've got my domain controller. Let me drill into them. Actually, while I do that, I'm going to close a couple windows real quick. I got a little window, or tab happy. There we go. So here's an individual item. So again, in my example, I'm using my domain controller. The vulnerability is 18405. Here, you're going to see some of the bidirectional communication that I can do. So let's say, as an example, like, hey, I went ahead and I patched this. It should be good, but my next scheduled scan is not going to happen for a month. And you want to spot check something as an example. Here, I'm going to click on where it says like tenable scan. And what it's going to do at this point, it's going to go ahead and talk to my demo instance, and it's going to say, hey, can you go ahead and perform just a vulnerability scan for that one particular vulnerability that you had found, okay? And if it was then addressed, it'll report back, and then that incident would then be closed. So here, let me get back on the ball here. I want to get here quick so you can see it work. I should have been doing this earlier so you can see it. So this is my tenable instance. I'm going to go to scans and active scan. I'm going to go quick scan results. There we go. I wasn't fast enough, but it already did it. So it was 36 seconds here. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's still going. So I did catch it in time. So in just a minute here, we're going to see our scan is going to get populated inside of my tenable. There we go. I hit it right on time. I thought I missed it, but this is what you're going to see now. So this is that scan then being triggered. It's going to take a few seconds, but the idea here is now that this is doing a one-off scan on one individual device. You can have it go on more if you wanted to, but this is just I wanted to show some of those higher levels of automation in talking with bidirectionally, other security tools that are there. This one being Tenable right in the middle that I'm kind of showing from here. And again, Tenable, it brought in the data, it's scanned, we're bringing it inside of ServiceNow, we're making the changes and associating and telling different individuals to fix it, please. Now, let me go back into my vulnerability group real quick. I think I want to talk about one more item real quick. Here we go. So earlier, again, I just wanted to show this. I should have shown this earlier. Here you'll see, I use this one a lot for my demo purposes here. But from the vulnerability, you can see if there are change requests already scheduled. Sometimes I get asked, like, hey, is there a way to see it kind of back and forth? Yep, absolutely. And you also have up here, initiate the vulnerability crisis workflow. You ever need something yesterday? So what this would allow you to do here is speed track or whatever word you want to use, speedline the process, right? So this is an emergency. It seems like, again, every quarter or every other quarter, there's some big vulnerability that hits. It's like, sorry, you guys, we got to deal with this now. And then other times it's like, okay, yeah, we'll kind of gobble this up in our normal process. But this is just one example of it's called the vulnerability crisis workflow, and then all the different steps that it's going to do to address with that. And here, just kind of as an example that you're going to see. Sorry, my phone was ringing. So what are all the different steps that this is going to take here, right? So let's look at it. So hey, need it right now? Streamline this. Notify certain individuals. Sure. Test my patches immediately. Yeah. So how do we go about testing them? Request approval to patch for production. Yeah, let's do our approval process. The production team's now going to apply the patch. Could we automate some of that? Yeah, absolutely. After that's done, let people know that it was patched. Vulnerability team, can you please rescan and make sure that was the case? Remember when I was showing you earlier when I was inside of my security center here and I performed that scan? That's what you're seeing here. Yeah. I see it was fixed. You know what? I scanned it. No, it's still vulnerable. Whoop. Right? So the idea here is that we're not going to finish this workflow until we fix the problem. We're good. It's showing that there's no vulnerabilities found anymore. Notifying different individuals, something that's hot on everyone's mind, and then go ahead and close this out. So just an example you know, a vulnerability crisis type workflow. And this one's kind of available out of the box. And again, you can tweak these as well if you need to, you know, have it go faster, you know, if it's something that was critical. Now, one of the last things I like to show in these webinars is just really some of the reporting. So let me do so. I'm going to go right into my home side, and I'll pick on vulnerability first. So for those who can still see my screen here, you're going to see there's a number of dashboards that are available here, but let me start showing you. I think this is slick. Vulnerability map, sure. For individuals here, like, hey, I'm global, or maybe not. I just got multiple locations. You can start drilling in, and like I said, when I brought in from my Splunk system, Thor server, when I brought in my domain controller, we can identify these configuration items to locations if you wanted to, if it made sense to. And then that's all part of the metadata that you can then, you know, run reports against. So I can see, hey, from my California, I actually have a lot of vulnerabilities here, and then you can see it by even city at that level. So just kind of slick. I like to show that, and then again, you can keep drilling in to see that, right? So here are all the vulnerabilities here for Santa Ana. I think I said that right. Good. Sure. You know what? High, non-critical, they're important, but let's go ahead and just focus in on critical, right? So it changes my view a little bit. Okay, now I'm only dealing with 66 here in the States as an example. So you can change this data here on the fly. Average vulnerability age, yeah. Am I making any headway here? Am I able to stay afloat, or you know, or how long is it taking me to knock some of these vulnerabilities out that I'm finding? This one's good. Vulnerabilities by assignment group and business criticality. So earlier when I was saying, you know, when I had that Thor server and it was a business critical server, that weighs into the overall vulnerability risk score. Here we can also kind of see by groups who's responsible for fixing this, right? So these vulnerabilities will be assigned to different teams in your organization. That can happen programmatically or on a case-by-case basis. It depends. Depends on how it needs to be dealt with and fixed. And then some high-level stuff here. So hey, the amount of vulnerabilities by here, like applications that I see as far as, you know, platform, Windows server, Linux server, etc. Then one of the last ones here I wanted to show. There we go. Yeah, this is on the security side. So just some high level type reporting here that you can do. You know, how many new incidents did I have this week? What is my average time to address on a security related incident, right? So these are a lot of sweet little metrics that a lot of people are like, I have no good way of tracking this today. I'm doing it in a separate system. I'm doing it in Excel. I'm doing it in all different sorts of things. But yeah, just want to show just some of the reporting that you can do. And again, all that data that I was showing, like, oh, can I do custom reports? Yeah, you can do custom reports. You can do custom ones. There's literally hundreds of reports that are available out of the box that you can use. A lot of times we end up cloning those and tweaking them a little bit. So guys, I know it's Friday. Let me look over. I want to see if there were any questions that were raised as I was going through this. One quick question. Hey, does vulnerability work with Qualys? Yes, it does. Yep, Qualys is supported. My demo, I did Tenable, but we've done work for individuals that leverage Qualys, and absolutely. And again, thanks for watching, and have a great weekend. We'll see you guys later. Thank you.